Okay, so you are asked to help estimate the requirements of the prison service in helping New Zealand's prison population obtain qualifications. There were 6,780 people in prison. Let's write that down. That's important information, right? So 6,780 people in prison in total. And as a result of a conviction in New Zealand in December 2011. Okay, so this is December 2011. I'm just going to butcher 12 2011. The number of people sentenced in prison is expected to grow by 2%. So we got to increase this by 2%. So we multiply it by 1.02. And so we grab a calculator and let's take that amount, 6780, and we multiply it by 1.02, because remember that's the multiply to increase the number by 2%. And that comes to a total of 6915.6. And this would assume a year later, 2012. Now you don't get 0.6 of a person because we're talking about people in prison. So this could either be 6915 or it could be 6916. All right. One of the two if we round it. So the number of people sentenced in prison is expected to grow by 2%. So it would be around there, approximately, right? So approximately, basically around there. Now the next part says 3/4, which is 3/4, of the people in prison in New Zealand left school with no qualifications. 3/4 of the people in prison in New Zealand, it doesn't say in 2011, it doesn't say in 2012, but it says 3/4 of the people in prison. So let's assume in 2011, if I take 3/4 times 6780, which is finding the fraction of a number, and I put that on a calculator, 6780 multiplied by 3 divided by 4 comes to 5085. 5085 people. 3/4 is a lot, right? Have no qualification in prison. There is one female prisoner also for every 18 male prisoners. Let's make it another note there. So one female prisoner for 18. One female to every 18 male. Females are in separate prisons, so require separate teachers. So what are they actually doing? They're getting teachers into the prison to teach people, in particularly these amount of people who don't have a qualification. And that's the fraction. This is a total of 19 parts in total. Female form 1 out of 19. Males form 18 out of 19 of the prisoners. And in separate prisons. 60% of prisoners are in prison long enough to be worth starting training. Now let's read that again. 60% of the prisoners. So let's go 60% of 6780, because that's everyone. Let's calculate that. Let's calculate that amount, which is going to be 0.6 times 6780. Comes to 4068. So there's 4,068 people, all right, in prison long enough to be worth starting training. So these are the people that are long enough that they can be there to start studying already. And then it continues and it says one teacher is required for every 40 prisoners. So one teacher, let's write that ratio down, is required for every 40 prisoners. So we can see that this is the total amount of people that would actually study. 5,085, they don't have a qualification, but not all of them will study. These are the ones that are worth studying or worth possibly studying. And then each of these could be male or female. So we could take that and we could split it up into male and female. And then we could also split it up into how many teachers we need for every 40 that can fit in here. All right, so a lot of information that we can extract from it. It now says predict the amount of men and women without qualifications in New Zealand's jails in 2012. Okay, so we know this is the amount, by the way, in 2011. All of these amounts are based on 2011 because in each amount, each of these calculations we used that day. So for 2012, that's going to change. So for 2012, I would take basically 3/4 and multiply it by the increased amount. And I'm going to use the decimal 6915.6. I'm also going to calculate 60% of 6915.6 of those that will actually study. And I'm just going to gather as much information as I can, right? So let's go 3 divided by 4 times 6915.6. We know there's no 0.6 of a person, but that comes to 5186.7 people. And if I calculate 60% of the same amount, 0.6 multiplied by 6915.6 comes to 4149.36 people. Okay, you can't get half a person. So we have to round this either down or up. Okay, so 5186 guaranteed, 4149 guaranteed. Predict the amount of men and women without qualifications, it says, in New Zealand's jails in 2012. So firstly, we know that these are the total amount of people that have no qualification. And if we use the same ratio, let's say the ratio does not change, and it stays 1, so assuming 1 to 18 ratio, the amount of men will be 18 out of 19 times 5186.17, and the amount of women will be 1 out of 19 times 5186.7. So let's take 5186. They don't want the ones who are actually studying. They're saying that's not it. So 5186.7 times 18 divided by 19 comes to 4913.72. And then on that same token, take that amount divided by 19. 5186.7 divided by 19 comes to 304.56. All right, so that's the woman and that's the man. So the question, predict the amount of men and women without qualification. So we could say approximately 4,913 men as a whole number, approximately 304 women without qualifications in 2012. And it says from that, predict the amount of teachers required. From that, predict the amount of teachers required for this. Okay, so we know that for every 40 prisoners, we need 1 teacher. But we also know 60%, by the way, 60% are the ones that actually will study. So which means we got to still calculate 60% of each of those. So we take 4913 times 60% of those that will study, right? But that's men and women. And from that, predict now because they're in separate prisons, they're going to need separate teachers. So let's take the 304 and also multiply it by 60%. And that'll come to two actual studying amounts that we'll actually study. So 4916 times 0.6 is 2949 from the males. So 29 approximately, again, I gotta use the word approximately here. Approximately meaning that it's not exact. So approximately 2949.6. And then 304 multiplied by 60%. 304 multiplied by 60% will come to 182. 182.4. So you could say 2949 if you have to round it. Okay. 2949 men and 182 women will study. Okay. Now if I take 2949 and I divide it by 40, that'll help me to decide how many teachers I need. And 182 do the same thing, right? 182 I do the same thing. So I go 182 divided by 40. So we go put that on the calculator. 2949 divided by 40 comes to 73.25. So approximately 73 teachers needed for the male prison. And then 182 divided by 40 comes to 4.55. That's approximately 4 teachers needed. Now 73 won't cover all of them, right? So we'd say 74 with plus 1. Okay, 74 teachers, and with plus 1 here to ensure that everyone gets a teacher. So 74 and 5 teachers in the female prison would be 5 teachers here. There would be the prediction of the amount of teachers required for this. Yeah. All right.